Uh, Okay, welcome back. We are ACI Course 10, Class 2, September 5th, 2025. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them here with you just by way of your thinking of them. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Learning about karma and emptiness, we get glimpses of how it's possible. And so we turn our minds back to our precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know. what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach me that. Show me that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands. And we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, through the merit that I do in sharing in this class and the rest. May we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May all beings fully awaken for the benefit of every single other. All right. So this class is from the first chapter of the root text that we are studying, the chapter on the benefits of the wish for enlightenment. Changchub ki sem ki penyin. So the root text that we're studying, you recall, is called The Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, written by that person, Indian man, meaning from India, Master Shantideva, who seemed to the other monks to do nothing but eat, sleep, and poop. But in fact, he was a deeply wise, deeply loving being who must have been doing more from inside his room for the benefit of others than what was going on outside his room in the monastery. That itself is a whole different teaching. It's like, can you do more from deep solitary retreat for your outer world than you can when you're out in your outer world? And it makes a great debate. But we're not talking about that in this class. We also have a commentary that we're studying from, which is what your reading is if you've looked at it. So we do get verses from the root text by way of the commentary. But we get the advantage of studying from a master, Jetsun Kappa's main student, one of his main students, which one was it? Gyaltsab Je Dharma Rinchen, who gives us a commentary on the poetry of the root text so that we can enter we can understand it better so that we can find that perfect entry point, right? The perfect place to enter our own path to our full enlightenment if we choose to go there, right? You are welcome to study this class and say, thanks, but no thanks right now, right? Seeds will have been planted for later. No obligation here. If I do my job right, we'll be chomping at the bit to learn to be bodhisattvas, because we have the seeds to be here, but don't feel obligated. And then we learned the 10 chapters. I'm not going to go through them, but that first chapter, Chang Chub Ki Sem Ki Penyin, is the benefits of this wish for enlightenment, like the advertisements for it. But in order to learn what the benefits of bodhicitta are, we need to know, what do they mean by bodhicitta? What do they mean by Chang Chub Ki Sem? We hear the English words, you hear the Spanish words, and we may have an idea of what those words mean, based on dictionary or whatever, but they're much deeper, much richer. So let me get my vocabulary page up here. Now. I think I have everybody. So last class, we learned the word Changchu in Tibetan, bodhicitta in Sanskrit, the Bodhi, meaning the Buddha mind, what it is to be a fully awakened being. And then the Chitta in Sanskrit, the movement of the mind that wants that state, wants Buddhahood. And in Tibetan, they translate it as Changchu, the Bodhi part, the Buddha mind part. Semkye, Kye is the word for to give birth, to be born. So here the Sam is the mind that wants to become Kye, Changchu. So bodhicitta is this state of mind that wants to reach Buddhahood. And when we say mind, in my mind, I automatically think of something up here. And so it's like my intellect, my thinker, me. And in Asia, at least in the more traditional days, when you ask somebody, where's your mind? They would point to their chest. They would point to their heart. And the thing that happens up here is something different in that culture. When I've done that, a few years ago, I had mostly Asian students. And when I asked them, where's your mind? Like me, they went like this. And it's like, nuts. The culture is losing that sense that when we say mind, we mean something coming from in here. And anatomically, it makes no sense, right? We associate our brain with our thinking capacity, and our heart just does this. But we all have heart, right? Separate from that organ, we have this thing called heart. And really, that's what we're talking about when we're trying to develop these ideas, these understandings of bodhicitta and of movement of the mind. It's like really, it's what's happening in our heart. Call it intuition, call it feeling. All of those words will not be accurate. And so somehow merge those two. All the learning that we're doing is intellect. And it's all about what we're trying to cultivate in our heart mind. Right. So keep that in mind, whichever one you relate to. So bodhicitta, the word means the wish for Buddhahood. But there's a wish for Buddhahood up here, and there's a wish for Buddhahood here. And although they're related, they're not actually one and the same thing. So when we're talking about the benefits of bodhicitta, we're not talking about the benefits of understanding what the word means and aspiring to become like that. We are talking about the benefits of actually having this state of mind of wanting to reach Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. When that intellectual understanding, belief, and aspiration does something and it gets down here, it becomes a direct experience of some kind that we can then never not know what it's like, even if we're not experiencing it directly again. So in order to understand the benefits of bodhicitta, we need to understand what we mean by bodhicitta. And in order to understand what we mean by bodhicitta, we need to understand what are called the 5 paths, which are the 5 stages, the five different realizations that we work on experiencing that characterize the movement of ourselves from suffering human being to fully enlightened being, whatever that means for us, which we'll be exploring. So the 5 paths are called lamna. The word na means 5, the number 5. Lam means path. So it's a slippery little word, path, because it is in English the word for, right, the way you get from here to here. You step onto the path and you follow the path wherever it goes, and then you get there, as long as you don't get off the path and go that way. So these 5 paths, they are directions we are going. They are changes that we're making in ourselves. They are experiences that we are having, like walking along a path to get to a new place. But they aren't that, actually. What the word lam or path is really referring to is a direct experience of something that we had not ever experienced before, that makes then that thing we have experienced real for us. The example I like is learning to ride a bicycle. So suppose you as an adult have never learned to ride a bike, and you decide you want to learn to ride a bike. You may pull up every YouTube video available about how to ride a bike and what it's like to ride a bike. And you could study those such that you could explain to somebody exactly how to ride a bike. But if you yourself have never done it, you don't actually know the experience until you get on the bike and you ride it. And then it doesn't matter if you've ever seen any YouTube video about riding a bike. You now know what it's like to ride a bike, right? And even if you never get on a bicycle again, you still know what it's like to ride a bike. Nobody can ever take that from you. So that realization of bike ride is what we really mean by a lum on these 5 paths to this transformation from suffering being to ultimately loving, ultimately wise being. There are experiences that we will have directly that change us forever. Like once you know how to ride a bike, you are different than you were before you've ridden a bike. Forever different. So these paths, this is what we mean. It does take some learning, training, moving along a physical path, making physical changes, but it's the realization that is the actual path. And those realizations, for many of them, excuse me, they happen in deep states of meditation. So my bicycle analogy fails here because for these spiritual realizations, they happen in this deep state where our experience is withdrawn from the sensory world such that we can have this other kind of direct experience that our outer world perception blocks us from having. So meditation training is a key factor in moving ourselves through our spiritual path. So this learning about what real bodhicitta is, that has such great benefits that we're going to study the rest of this book about how to grow it, is the bodhicitta that is the result of some direct experience, is what this class I'm trying to describe to you in this class. The bodhicitta that we're thinking about and wanting to, using mental words and feelings to grow, that contributes to the direct experience. But there's real bodhicitta, and there's not unreal bodhicitta, but not the bodhicitta that has the benefits that I'm going to talk about when I finally get there in the last 10 minutes of class. So bear with me, please. To understand real bodhicitta, we need to understand these 5 paths. So the first of the 5 paths is called Soklam. Here's Lamna is the 5 paths. The 5 paths are Soklam, Jorlam, Tonglam, Gomlam, and Miloblam in the Tibetan language, West Asian language. Sok means to gather. They call it the path of accumulation. On the path of accumulation, while we are on that path, what we are accumulating is our technically what we are accumulating is our renunciation, the term renunciation. We don't really know it. We don't know that's what we're accumulating. We're on our path of accumulation as we go through ordinary human lives, experiencing all the things that we do to get the things and the people and the reputations, etc., that we go to for happiness. And then in life, sometimes those things bring us happiness, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes those happinesses last a pretty long time, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes those very things that we were relying on to make us happy, something happens, and those very same things now make us really upset. You know, like you finally get that special car and it's your pride and joy. And then, oh my gosh, you come out and somebody's run their key across the paint job and it's all scratched up. And now it's the source of upset every time you see that scratch. Life is like that. And for many, many lifetimes, we just go, that's life. That's what it's like, you know, and then you die. And it's all somehow acceptable and okay. And then along comes some lifetime where, I don't know, something about us is like, wait, there is something wrong with this picture. For many of us, some really awful event happens. You know, we're good people. We expect to have good things happen to us. And then something really nasty happens. And it just breaks us. We go, you know, really, there's something wrong with this picture. And we don't know what's wrong. And we don't know what's right. But we know we reach this point where we go searching. Somebody must know what's wrong here. Somebody must know what I need to do differently or something somewhere. And we search. That period of time where we've recognized that it's not working, but we haven't quite found our path, our direction yet, is called this path of accumulation. We are accumulating enough disgust with our usual human choices of behavior, our mindset, our experiences, that we're looking for something different. And this soklum can last many lifetimes, apparently, where we're still searching. We make progress during our search, of course. And sooner or later, we meet a teacher or a teaching that grabs us. It's like, whoa, there's something special about this one. And we delve into it deeply and we keep finding it to be useful. It makes sense. It fits us. The other people seem to demonstrate that it works. And we're on what's called our path of preparation. It's not like we leave our path of accumulation behind as we step onto our path of preparation. It's more like we're in our path of accumulation, we're still looking, so we're kind of scattered. And then it's like, oh, here's the path for me. And we zero in. And on our path of preparation, Jorlam, we are learning more, studying, practicing, training. We're testing what we're being taught in life to see if it makes any more sense than the old way that we are wanting to give up. It's called the path of preparation. Technically, on that path, during that time, we are preparing for an experience through which we come to know from direct experience how it is, where it is that happiness really comes from, how to make it, and how to sustain it. On the path of preparation, we are learning, we are contemplating, and we are meditating, called Tu Som Gom. I didn't write that down. Forgetting whether it's a O or a U. Well, maybe it's a A. There we go. But in this study, contemplate, meditate, there's also the component of helping people, service. And we'll see why by the end of class, I hope. So path of preparation, we are preparing for this realization that brings the whole teachings that we've been learning about in Jorlam into a reality from direct experience, like finally getting on the bicycle and riding it. That experience is the third path called Tonglam, the path of seeing. In the path of preparation, as it's culminating, we have a direct experience outside of meditation in which we have this otherworldly experience of experiencing how whatever the object is that you are experiencing at the moment, you have this direct experience of how that object's identity and characteristics are coming out of your own mind seed. Do you remember the pen? And we said, why do I see pen and puppy see chew toy? And we said, something coming out of my mind. And that thing coming out of my mind had to have been put in there in some way. And our conclusion, just not from logic, but from explanation, was the way the imprint gets into my mind is by way of what I've seen myself thinking, saying, doing towards another. And when that imprint crosses the threshold into manifestation, out comes this experience of them doing that to me, not the same them and not the same thing, but similar, grown. So when in path of preparation, we have this experience, oh my gosh, my own mind is making this yellow bird printed teacup full of green tea. My mind's making that. It's astonishing because we've never experienced that directly before. And we'll go meditate about it. And if we have the capacity to go into a deep enough meditation such that we will not be distracted by anything that goes on around us, we will follow that train of meditation on. Everything has always been an experience coming out of the seeds of my own mind. Oh my gosh, including me, my me. And then our mind will follow that train of thought into, and oh my gosh, there's never been anything not like that, not existing like that. And our mind moves into a direct experience of what's called the no self. Right? Buddhism says no self is your true nature. And it's so easily misunderstood because it makes it sound like nothing's real, nothing's there, I'm not even real, which is ridiculous because the only thing we really know is I am, right? Each one of us have a moment by moment direct experience of our own existence. Don't let anybody tell you you don't exist without fighting back. Because we know, right? We are riding the bicycle constantly. In this one factor, I am. So in this Tonglen, path of seeing, what we are seeing, but not with our eyes, is our absence of a self nature that we have believed that we've had since forever. So when I said the only thing you really know is I am, that does not mean your I am is not a projected result of your own past perceptions of I am. But can you see the conundrum? How can she say, all you know is that you exist, and then say, but that you that exists, it has no nature? Do I exist or don't I? But to say I exist and I have no nature actually explains exactly how and why we exist and always will. So all of that is experienced directly on this Tonglen. They explain, we go into a direct experience of the absence of self-existence of all existing things, including oneself. And that there's nothing more that can be said about that experience because you're experiencing an absence. That in that absence, there can be no appearance. So you can't, while you are in that deep state of the direct perception of emptiness, have the thought, oh, I'm doing it. Because that's not an absence, that's a appearing side, a presence. You can't be aware of anything. Have you disappeared? No, but you're not aware of yourself for the first time. And we think, no, I have to rewind that. It's not that you're not aware of yourself. Anyway, nothing more can be said about the experience of the direct perception of emptiness. And it only lasts a certain period of time. It will be a result, a ripening result, like any other ripening result. And because it has such an extraordinary impact on our I am, our me, it must be a ripening result of many, many, many extraordinary kindness seeds, goodness seeds that we've imprinted in our mind that have ripened into this extraordinary experience. And it can only sustain it for a certain period of time. When you come out of it, you realize, oh, you know, that was only 10 or 15 minutes, 20 maybe. It's not like it goes on for days and days. When you come out of it, that's when your appearing nature is back into our usual sensory awareness, including our thought awareness. And we'll have the thought, oh, that was it. Or, oh, I did it. And then there's a series of realizations that come to you. You're still in meditation, but you're out of that depth of tonglam, out of the direct perception of emptiness. But now you know that there's no existing thing, no experience we can have that has its identity or its qualities in it, from it, the way we experience things. Like the pen. When we think of the pen and then recognize a different being can perceive that same object in a different way, that tells me that my own mind and their own mind brings something to the party that makes the identity of the object. And that's true of every experience that we have, including our experience of our me. It also is coming out of our mind, ripening result. So this experience, it's called the direct perception of emptiness. And it takes cogitating and hearing it again and again to fine-tune our understanding of what it is and its impact. But when we come out of that, we have had a realization of bodhicitta. When we were in it, we weren't going, oh, my bodhicitta. But to have that direct perception of emptiness is a direct experience of ultimate reality. And that's one of the meanings of bodhicitta, to have had that. Once you've had that and you're out of it, you can remember it, but you can't sit down in meditation and have it again by willpower. We will need to accumulate enough goodness to have it happen again. It will happen again, but it doesn't happen regularly, according to those in the know. However, you have been forever changed because of that experience, you now know that any object or any other person or any thought of anything existing independent of being a result of my own past behavior imprints is wrong. We'll still experience ourselves and our world in that way, and we'll know that we're wrong in our perception, and so we'll know that our automatic reaction to those situations will also be mistaken. And we will be choosing our interactions with others in a much more careful way, in an effort to avoid doing any kind of harm, and to be careful to try to do any big and small types of kindnesses, because we understand that any harm I see myself doing is gonna come back to something unpleasant for me. Any kindness I do is gonna come back of some kind of someone being kind to me. What kind of world do I want? A world of less pain and more kindness. So, yes, we're on the Mahayana track, wanting to do this for others' benefit. And we are one of those all sentient beings that we want to help. The way for us to know what's kind and what's unkind is by way of extrapolating. If somebody was doing this to me, would I like it or not? And that's what actually determines an unkind seed versus a kind seed. We get a list of ways to try to plant more kindness so we don't have to figure it out ourselves. But just with that basic premise, because of what we know from our path of seeing, we know less of this and more of that, because that's how I create my future world. Everything about it. And so we are so empowered by our growing understanding of how no self nature and our behavior are tied together. They're not actually two things tied together. They are reality, two sides of the same coin. We will learn. So, path of seeing, the first part is this direct yogic experience of the no self nature of self and all existence. We come sliding out of that still in meditation, and we are having these realizations about, well, that's where all the suffering comes from. Like everything has been created from a mistaken state of mind. That's why pleasant things wear out. That's why unpleasant things come to me. Oh my gosh, right? It's called the first Arya truth of suffering. Everything is suffering and creating more. And we have the understanding, and all those sufferings have causes. And the underlying cause is that misunderstanding, that I didn't understand where things were coming from. So I tried to get happiness by doing the wrong things. No wonder it didn't work. And we see the truth of the cessation of suffering. First of all, because you just spent 20 minutes free of suffering, so you know it's possible. Second of all, you saw that the things that cause suffering were coming out of my own mental seeds. So if I can stop the causes, I'll stop all suffering. And then the fourth realization is, and here's how you do it, right? The Eightfold Path, or the behavior changes that we train ourselves in then, in order to stop recreating a world that's broken. And the world's not broken. We're mistaken about how our activities affect our own minds. Now, if on our Jorlam, we are studying the path called the Mahayana path, the path where our concern for suffering includes other beings, not just our own. Then as we go into our path of seeing, our motivation for our meditation is in order to become one who can help that other in that deep and ultimate way. We start with just one other being. They represent all beings. So if our mind is imbued with bodhicitta, when we go into our path of seeing that direct experience of emptiness, when we come out of that, still in meditation, that wish, bodhicitta wish, triggers an experience that those who have had it describe as like an orgasmic feeling in your chest, and like crystal rays of light shine forth in all directions and illuminate the faces of every existing being, like one by one, they say. It's hard to conceive. And you love them, right? You declare, I'm coming to help you. Don't worry, right? I'm coming. You make your pledge to every one of these beings. And they say it happens in the space of a few minutes. That's the capacity of this thing we call mind. It can ripen an experience of the face of every being, not just human. And it ripens this sense of love like a mother for her only child. Her only child who's suffering. Like, I don't know, I hope nobody has had the experience of a small child with cancer. But to me, that's gotta hurt, like so bad for the parent, because you can't explain to them what's going on. They can't understand. They're hurting. They don't even know how much danger they're in, but you do as the parent. And oh my gosh, the only thing worse would be for them to die and to lose them. And it just rips my heart apart to think of it. And I don't even have kids. But what if you had that feeling, like towards every existing being? And then you've had that experience, it ends, but now you've had it. You are forever changed by it. It's a valid experience. You know you're not making it up. Okay? Again, forever changed by that. And you come out further. Finally, you come out of meditation. You realize what all has happened. You're going on to have those 4 realizations. There's 16 aspects of 4 of each one, 16 aspects totally, which take place over the course of about like the next day. They say 24 hours, but if all of this has happened to you in the morning, for instance, you know, you're going to go to bed at night. And this all happens in the course of a day. Our tonglam. That heart opening experience is the other thing they call real bodhicitta. The moment it happens, but then the effect that it's had on us is our bodhicitta. Okay? So the real bodhicitta is the direct experience of the true nature of all existence, which is its empty nature, not that it doesn't exist at all. And this direct experience of my personal responsibility for the end of all suffering, not being a heavy load, but this heart opening experience. It's the bodhicitta in appearing and the bodhicitta in the absence. That bodhicitta is what we're calling real bodhicitta. And that bodhicitta now changes us forever. And that bodhicitta has these great benefits. All right, you're with me? I have 5 more minutes before break. Once we come out of our path of seeing path, end of that 24-hour period, actually technically outside that meditation, we are now on the 4th path called Gomlam. Gomlam means the path, the path of living according to what I now know is true. Path of habituation. Soklam took many, many lifetimes. Jorlam, we're doing in this lifetime. Tonglam happens in 20 minutes or so. And then Gomlam, they say typically lasts 7 lifetimes. That means that if you are on Gomlam and this life comes to an end, you're pretty much guaranteed to be reborn into a human being in a circumstance where you will very swiftly meet your path, your Jorlam, and very soon in life repeat your Tonglam and get right back onto your path of habituation. Like why we hear those stories of the holy beings, you know, by 2 years old, they're reading the Dharma. By 6 years old, they're teaching the Dharma, right? And we wonder, how can that possibly be, right? It's because they did the work in previous lifetimes and they're just carrying on with it. If we think 7 lifetimes, you know, if those lifetimes are 70 to 100 years, you're talking 500 years. After you've had your first official Tonglam, you've got about 500 years left in samsara, in this broken world, before we will have completely transformed it from broken into pure. We think, oh, 500 years, that's a long time. But compared to, right, eons, infinite, up to this point, 500 years is like next week on your calendar. You know, we just saw a movie where they took like all of Earth's existence and put it into 1 year. And they explained this happened in this month and this happened in that month. And like in the last 15 seconds of the year, that's when humans show up, you know, and then like we are so teeny compared to all of existence. But that's not true, actually, because this mind, this one and your ones, they've been present, ever changing, but ever existence since the day 1 on that calendar, if we can call it that. And all of it mistaken until we have our Tonglam. See how important bodhicitta is? It's the shift that allows us to truly transform our world. If our world had some kind of suffering nature in it, from it, independent of being results, my own results, then I could never change it all the way, could I? Maybe I could change it a little bit. Okay, so why did I go there? On Gomlam, we are working on knowing, burning off our seeds that have been planted when we still misunderstood where things came from. And intentionally planting our behaviors, colored now by our wisdom, such that any one of those behaviors, when they ripen, will be ripening free of suffering of ourselves and others. So once we've had our path of seeing with this Bodhisattva mind, the mind that wants to reach Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient being, then every perception we have is colored with that wish. So before that, we're trying to do our behaviors with wisdom. We're pretending we have wisdom. We're thinking of the empty nature of things and self as we interact with others. And that is planting seeds. Those are the seeds that will help us see emptiness directly. But it's not until we're out of the emptiness directly that we're actually planting seeds that can ripen free of suffering. So this bodhicitta state of mind, the wish and the experiencing it directly, and then the heart opening, is this critical piece that shifts our seed planting from ignorant or misunderstood to wisdom. On Gomlam, we have still mental seeds that were planted with the misunderstanding, and they're gonna ripen. So as a newborn Arya Bodhisattva, we are still seeing those yelling bosses as in them, from them. That jerk, he's yelling at me again. But we know that we are mistaken. And so we know that my old reaction, yell back, say bad things about him, is mistaken. And we won't do it. And very quickly, that feeling to blame them will just go away. The anger towards them will go away. Because it's all part of the big mistake. And now we know better. So this is what happens on path of habituation, Gomlam. We're doing life. And we're planting seeds with great intention, all of them colored with that wish to stop the suffering of all beings. Finally, we reach what's called Milo Blanc. Milo Blanc means the no more learning path. No more learning means done. Nothing more to learn, nothing more to change about ourselves. It's the way they term reaching our Buddhahood. This full transformation into Buddha me in Buddha paradise, emanating this being made of love, compassion, wisdom. We finally reach it. It's interesting because for years I thought, oh, great, I'm done. But then I realized, no, I'm just getting started. Like, you finally graduate from your college high-level training. Now I can get a job, right? And I'm on my career. Buddhahood is like that. Everything up to it has been our training. And now found my purpose. So it's not like you become Buddha and then you just sit in paradise and do nothing. It's like, no, now I get to emanate, and well, all kinds of cool things. Milo Blanc, that's Milo Blanc. Let's take a break because I have more to say about Milo Blanc. get refreshed, come back. Oopsie. I'm going to let the recording go, so there's going to be a gap when you listen. Okay, are we back? So I just heard myself say, Miloblam, the path of no more learning, is what's meant by reaching our Buddhahood. But that's only the case if our path of Jorlam, Tonglam, Gomlam have been colored by a mind of bodhicitta. And I said that we don't actually get real bodhicitta until our path of seeing, Tonglam, that the bodhicitta we're cultivating in Jorlam is not the actual one. It's the intellectual understanding, the aspiration. However, we could, on our path of accumulation, meet teachings that tell us, look, all this suffering is a big mistake. And one can reach the place where one's own mind is completely peaceful, free of mental afflictions, no matter what happens around you. By understanding where things come from well enough, we can burn off our negative seeds, plant positive seeds, and reach a direct experience of the no self nature of things and others, and use our path of habituation to burn off our negative seeds and plant only good, and reach this highest state, Miloblam, which is called nirvana. Nirvana is a state where our mind has eliminated the mental affliction, obstacles, and their causes entirely because of having seen emptiness directly and learned the four truths about suffering, and then applied ourselves to stopping our own suffering. We can do all of that without ever feeling any personal responsibility for stopping others' suffering. And if we believed that that was our highest capacity of like evolution of our mind is to reach our own state of peace, then our entire spiritual path will take us to that goal. And that would be what would be referred to as Miloblam, no more learning. They say that during Shakyamuni Buddha's teaching career, somebody must have asked, it's like, well, if you reach nirvana, do you stay in nirvana forever if technically there's more evolution that can be done? And Buddha told this story of some being who was even on their Bodhisattva path, and they reached the level called nirvana, and it was so pleasurable that they stayed there for a really long time. And finally, Buddha, who knows what's going on, he says, whoa, they're going to stay there longer. So Buddha went to them and said, hello in there. You need to come out. There's more to do. You are totally peaceful, blissed out, but there are beings who are suffering, and you know the truth. And don't you want to share it with them? Come on. You had some bodhicitta. Don't you want to help them all reach the same peace that you have? You're not going to lose the peace. And I guess the Bodhisattva said, okay. And then it seemed like they went back into samsara. And that's a long, different story. But there's this rumor that says bodhisattvas delay their own enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. And it's one of those Dharma rumors that makes Geshe Michael Hopping mad, because it's such a misunderstanding of what it is to be a bodhisattva and what it is to be a Buddha. That no, they don't delay their enlightenment, but they also are not trying to avoid any experience that seems samsaric. They're using everything in their ability to help everybody stop making the mistake that perpetuates suffering. So a bodhisattva may very well, go work in a soup kitchen because people who go to soup kitchens are in need. But they know that feeding people food is only a temporary help. So while they are feeding people food, they are doing other things to make connections with those people, so that when those people are in the position of being safe and their needs met, and their mind turns to wanting to know what's broken, they have that connection with the one who looked like they were a regular being giving them soup. But in fact, it was the connection between their future teacher. And maybe it's many lifetimes between the soup kitchen thing and the teacher-student relationship. From the Bodhisattva's perspective, doesn't really matter how long it takes. The connection has been made and it will happen. What matters is how much suffering goes on between the time the connection is made and when the relationship starts. And also another story. So what I'm trying to point out is that these 5 paths are not automatically the paths to Buddhahood. What makes them the 5 paths to Buddhahood is our motivation and intention through which we are doing them. And that intention gets accumulated in our path of accumulation. It gets clarified in our path of preparation. It gets realized in our path of seeing, and it gets practiced in our path of habituation that grows us into this transformed being. If Buddhahood is our goal, that will be the result. If nirvana is our goal, that will be the result. If just closing the doors on lesser rebirth is our goal, that will be the result. Do you see? Becoming a Buddha functions from within the whole system of intention, coloring behavior choices, creating the seeds that in the future will be our reality. That's how we can transform. It doesn't work in any other way than that. No Buddha can come and bonk us on the head and make our karma change. They can only teach us how to change our own karma, and then it's up to us. Apply it or don't. Once you've heard it, you're kind of cursed, because eventually you're going to apply it. But totally up to us, the extent to which we want to apply ourselves. It's really a sweet system in that way. Okay, so then if bodhicitta makes the difference between reaching nirvana or reaching Buddhahood, what's the difference between nirvana and Buddhahood? Because that will tell us something about the effect bodhicitta has on the seed, on our mind as we plant our seeds. So in this tradition, they very specifically say nirvana is your own personal freedom, the state of mind where there is nothing that can rock you from your state of peace. You can have unpleasant experiences, but your reaction to them will not be any form of upset. Hard to conceive. Your state of mind of Buddha you is never rocked from its state of peace. And it also is perceiving that ultimate reality directly, always, and is perceiving appearing reality always, all three times. So what I'm describing is omniscience. A Buddha mind, fully awakened mind, is an omniscient mind. And omniscience we'll study in greater depth later. It's basically saying a mind that's perceiving ultimate reality and appearing reality simultaneously. All beings, all minds, all at the same time. And as a result, that means the Buddha mind is directly experiencing what this mind, how this mind perceives itself, and directly experiencing what this mind needs yet to give up and what to take up in order to move my own self along my path to the end of suffering, whether it's nirvana or Buddhahood. So to reach omniscience requires certain causes. It's the results of causes, just like breakfast. If the difference between nirvana and Buddhahood is omniscience, and the difference between reaching nirvana and reaching Buddhahood is bodhicitta, there's something about bodhicitta that contributes to our omniscience. Is that logical? And that's the main benefit of growing our bodhicitta, is that it colors our mind, heart, such that the deeds that we do to move ourselves along our path are directed towards Buddhahood instead of nirvana. If our goal is Buddhahood, we see that as being beyond nirvana. If our goal is nirvana, nirvana is the highest. But nirvana does not have the component of the omniscience that knows what all beings need to give up and take up in order to stop all suffering. That omniscience, because it's born of bodhicitta, also then spurs forth, the bodhicitta spurs forth our emanations. Your Buddha you, blissed out in your paradise, will simultaneously be, they say, sending forth appearances into existing worlds all beings what they need in order to help them move along the path. We can spend hours fantasizing about what that will be like, and a human intellect can't conceive of it. But it's so much fun to try. And it gets deeper and more expansive the more that we do. So, bodhicitta is the difference between reaching nirvana and reaching Buddhahood. And therefore, the idea by the end of this course is to inspire us all to go, wow, I really do want to cultivate my bodhicitta. Sorry, I got off my notes here. So I haven't really given you a definition of bodhicitta yet.
Sí, es que los lunes y viernes tengo un...
Tienes mucho trabajo.
Perdón, pero
I've just I've described it, and I've described its effect, but I haven't actually given you the definition. So Geshe Michael goes to Lord Maitreya's definition of bodhicitta. And Lord Maitreya is in Sutra a great bodhisattva, meaning they're on their path of habituation, having seen emptiness directly with bodhicitta in their heart, so that he's still in the process of clearing out his obstacles to omniscience, not a Buddha yet. Secret tradition says, don't be silly. He became Buddha a long time ago and is manifesting himself as a bodhisattva to help people. But he's not walking around amongst our human world. Right now, he's hanging out in his own bodhisattva paradise, Buddha paradise, waiting until it's time for him to manifest into our world as what's called the fourth wheel turning Buddha. Is that right? So Lord Maitreya is said to be the next fully enlightened being to walk on our planet, to teach, to come to teach. Long story about what he's waiting for. He's not waiting for anything. It's our ripening seeds that are not yet virtuous enough to manifest a pure being walking amongst us. Another long story. Anyway, if he's the next wheel-turning Buddha to come to our planet, probably he's a good authoritative source for what the definition of bodhicitta. That's the point of that story. So Lord Maitreya gives this short definition because the full definition of bodhicitta is 2 paragraphs long and really confusing. We learned it in course 2. If you recall, we were supposed to memorize it, but it's like it went in one ear and out the other for me. But this one, here's one we can wrap our hearts around. So please say after me, you can stay muted. Semke pani shendin cheer. Yang dak zokpe chang chum de. There's that prenasal in here, an N before the D. Semke pani shendin cheer. Yang dak zokpe chang chum de. One more time for good luck. Semke pani shendin cheer. Yang dak zokpe chang chum de. So this is Tibetan. We see some words we've seen before. Changchu, Semke, and maybe we've seen Dzogpe. So here, this word, the Ndu, it means to want to reach it. Yang Dak Dzogpe Changchu means total Buddhahood. So when I said some people believe that nirvana is the highest achievement, they then call nirvana enlightenment. We call enlightenment Buddhahood. So it could be confusing, couldn't it? So Lord Maitreya says, let's call Mahayana enlightenment total enlightenment, Yang Dak Dzogpe Changchu, to make sure that we don't mean nirvana here. I want to reach my total enlightenment, meaning Buddhahood, meaning that peaceful state of mind plus omniscience. I want to reach that. But that's only half of bodhicitta. Semke Pani Shendin Chir is the other half. Semke Pani, Semke means the mind that wants to give birth to something, the wishing mind. Semke Pani means this wish for bodhicitta. Shendin Chir means for the sake of all sentient beings. Shendun is these other beings, and Chir, I guess, is for all of them. So the definition of bodhicitta has these two components. I want to reach my highest evolution of my mind that I understand to be possible. And I want to do it in order to benefit, for the benefit of all sentient beings. So there's two critical pieces here. The highest evolution aspiration and the all sentient beings. I like to call them the two bigs. To reach Buddhahood, we have to make really big, powerful seeds. What makes our seeds powerful enough to be the causes for Buddhahood are these two like huge aspirations. The aspiration to reach the highest evolution of my mind, Buddhahood, for the benefit of all sentient beings. All means all. Really, we would say infinite. But infinite means never ending. And they say that there really is a finite number of mind streams, all of whom will sooner or later come to see themselves as fully enlightened Buddhas. What happens then, I don't understand. Like, we all hang out in our Buddha paradises together forever. Forever is a long time. But get this in your mind. The wish to reach total enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings is the definition of this quality of mind, bodhicitta, that when our heart is colored with that, when we experience ultimate reality directly, coming out of that experience, we are on the conveyor belt to our Buddhahood, no matter how long it takes. Because we've now experienced directly the truth of what that wish means. And nobody can ever take that from you. Just like nobody can say, that's not what it's like to ride the bike. Yes, it is. I did it. Okay. Yes, it is. I did it. Tonglam with bodhicitta. Experiencing emptiness directly with bodhicitta in our heart. we can't fail to transform ourselves in our world. How long is it going to take? 7 lifetimes, maybe more, maybe less, but there's an end in sight. Technically, that's the benefit of bodhicitta. Do you see? And so we grow our wish, the wish in the form of the words, back here in our path of preparation. That's what we're doing now. We are making imprints in our mind that are growing this understanding, and those seeds will grow. And as they grow, our understanding will grow. And as our understanding grows, it will influence our behavior choices. And through our behavior choices, we change the world around us. But there's that darn time gap. We are ripening seeds from before we knew any better. We're planting seeds now knowing better by belief. And it takes time for the ones we're planting now to be the ones that show up. All right. Almost done here. So if there's only one thing you decide to memorize in Tibetan in order to help preserve the language, have it be this verse, because it's such a powerful goodness to say it. We should say it in our own language because that resonates better. It will help preserve access to the Dharma in Tibetan if we say this from time to time in Tibetan. So please memorize Semke Pani Shendin Chir Yongdak Dzogpe Changchum De. All right, so I'm finally getting close to where I get to tell you the benefits of bodhicitta. We just saw the big one. It makes the difference of the goal of our path be our own nirvana versus Buddhahood. Now, there's another word for bodhicitta. We don't use it, but when we hear this word, we want to think bodhicitta, and that's nyamshak yashe. Nyamshak is the word that's used when you temper steel. You can make the metal steel and it's pretty hard, but when you temper it, it means you heat it up and cool it down and heat it up and cool it down. And every time you do that, it gets harder and harder and harder. Nyamshak is like this hardened, really, really hardened steel. Yeshe is the word for wisdom. So Nyamshak Yeshe is this wisdom that we have once we've come out of the direct perception of emptiness, having gone into that with a mind imbued with the wish to reach Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Like the most hardened wisdom, the ultimate wisdom, we could say. Another word for bodhicitta. Then we move on to the aftermath wisdom. It's called Jetop Yeshe, Jetop Yeshe, which is that period of time after the direct perception, out of meditation, but still under its influence. And you're having these different realizations about yourself and your world that come to be known as the Four Noble Truths, Four Arya Truths, more accurate. We'll learn those later. So now, we've just said that there's bodhicitta in the form of our growing intellectual understanding and our aspiration to grow that belief in it strong enough to color our interaction with others. And then there's the bodhicitta that is the direct experience, the one that is the direct experience of the emptiness of self and others, and then the direct experience of the love for others that the intellectual aspiring wish was growing within us. So we have this separation into bodhicitta before we experience it directly and bodhicitta after we experience it directly. And in the bodhicitta before we experience it directly, there are two levels of it. And these two are called munsem and juksem. Mun means prayer. Sem is that mind, the semke, the mind that's wanting to grow something new or different. So munsem means the wish in the form of a prayer, meaning we've heard about what it is to be a Buddha, and something in our heart goes, oh, that sounds cool. You know, maybe that's what I'm meant to be. And then we learn more about it, and we hear about suffering and how really it's a result of a big mistake. And we think, oh, gosh, maybe I could stop making that mistake. And we're starting to grow this wish to be a force of change for ourselves and the others that we love, right? We start out turning it on to the people that we love. Munsem is this growing attraction to the idea of becoming a force for love in my world. But we aren't actually doing anything about it. Geshe said it's like something occurs to you and you decide, I want to go take a vacation in Hawaii. And you get out the maps and you start planning your trip and you buy your tickets, but you're still in your living room. And you're fantasizing about being in Hawaii, but still in the living room. Then at some point, we're ready to try it on for size. And our bodhicitta becomes juksem. Juksem means our wish in the form of action. In our analogy, it means your bags are packed. The day comes, you take your tickets and you go to the airport and you go to Hawaii and you have your great vacation. So juksem is when our wish in the form of a prayer starts to color our behavior choices in life. Now we're on the bodhicitta in the form of action. They make a distinction. When we first are inclined towards bodhicitta and still in the living room phase, we can actually take a ceremony where we say, I declare myself to be in my living room planning on how to become a bodhisattva. And I pledge to continue with that. And then at some point, we've fantasized and fantasized and fantasized about becoming bodhi, growing our bodhicitta, that we finally decide, I'm ready to commit myself to trying those behaviors on for size. And we go to the teacher and say, please, help me make this commitment. And it's called taking the Bodhisattva vows, deciding that we will try to live according to certain behavior guidelines that teach us how to live like a Bodhisattva, because it's just easier for us to follow guidelines provided by an authority than it is for us to try to reinvent the wheel ourselves. But of course, for many of us, to just be told to do something by an authority, right? My own mind goes, right? I'm not going to do it just because you said so. And I do need to reinvent the wheel. And much of the teaching of the ACI is to show ourselves to us that, oh my gosh, this authority figure is an authority figure. This is an omniscient being that knows how to make my life easier. At some point, I can decide, okay, I'll buy it. I'll follow their advice and check it out. So anyway, when we make this shift from the wish in the form of the prayer to the wish in the form of the action, we can do it in our own mind and just leave our living room and go out into our world and do our best to be more kind on purpose. Or we can learn about the guidelines of that behavior and then take a formal ceremony to declare ourselves to that behavior. And there's an advantage to taking vows that we learn about in that course. So juksam is this shift in our mind from fantasizing about being bodhisattva to actually trying it on for size. And of course we fail. And we know what to do when we fail because we've learned how to clean it up and start over. And that's coming in classes soon. So we have these two pre-bodhicitta bodhicitta. The one where I want to become Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings sounds great, and I'm going to think about it and have it inspire me, but I'm not going to change my behavior yet. And then we have the level where it's like, oh, I get it. I am going to have this try to color my behavior, which will make me not yell back at the boss, because I see that's perpetuating suffering for myself and them and everybody around me. And I'll go further to see, where am I yelling at somebody else or blaming somebody else that's making that boss do that thing to me? And I'm going to stop that too. Not just change my boss, but change me where I'm acting like the boss towards others, because I'm growing my bodhicitta. See? Okay. So how does it work, this bodhicitta? How can just a state of mind make such a difference in the way the seeds are planted? And so suppose you take flowers to your favorite Aunt Mary, and our ordinary state of mind might be, I like Aunt Mary. Aunt Mary likes me. She likes me more when I bring her nice flowers. It's nice when Aunt Mary likes me more, so I will take her flowers. Nothing wrong with that. Take Aunt Mary flowers. When we are growing our understanding of our path and our broken world, we recognize, yes, it's nice to bring flowers to Aunt Mary. She feels good. I feel good. And then I go home, and on my way home, I trip and fall and sprain my knee. And Aunt Mary calls me a few days later and her plumbing is clogged, right? We just both go on to have more problems. So offering flowers was sweet and lovely, and understanding karma, I know it'll come back as some lovely thing that somebody does for me, but in the end, Aunt Mary's gonna die or I'm gonna die, and we lose it all anyway. What's wrong with this picture? As we're growing our understanding of the power of being kind to anybody can go deeper, we can take the same flowers to Aunt Mary, and we can be thinking, Aunt Mary can represent all sentient beings for me. These flowers, worldly pleasure, can represent my giving Aunt Mary the wisdom through which she will become Buddha someday. And me, because I don't really know how Aunt Mary perceives me, I'm perceiving myself as an ordinary suffering being. But you know what? Maybe she's perceiving me as like her angel for the day. Why don't I step into that, and be looking like I'm offering flowers to Aunt Mary, but in fact, because of the emptiness, I'm going to pretend that, right, I'm a being made of love, and Mary's a being made of love. And by giving these beautiful, pleasant flowers, we are creating a world where everybody has a little bit of pleasure right now. It's all fantasy. It's all going on in my mind. The experience is, Aunt Mary, you look lovely today. I brought you these flowers. I hope you enjoy. The experience looks the same, but what's going on in my heart is different. Who's watching? My own mind. My own mind is aware of ordinary me giving ordinary flowers to ordinary Aunt Mary. And my mind is aware of me going, nah, because of my growing bodhicitta, I'm doing this angel thing right now for Angel Mary, so that together we're creating a pure world. Am I still planting seeds? Yes. Those seeds are colored. Now, with this fantasy, yes, it's a fantasy, but they're in there, and those seeds are going to grow. And we add more to them as we put the gas in the car. Looks like putting gas in the car, but really, anything could be happening here. I'm going to put gas in my car with bodhicitta in my heart in order to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Just to have that thought makes the awareness of myself putting gas in the car be colored with bodhicitta. Is it coming across? Mowing your lawn, doing your dishes, brushing your teeth. Just having that thought, I'm doing this in order to reach my Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings, is adding that seed into the imprint. What does brushing your teeth have to do with getting enlightened? Nothing. Everything. Because of the state of mind with which we did it. And it sounds like, oh, all we have to do is hear that and then just turn on bodhicitta. But I have to admit, even after all these years of teaching this to people and doing it myself, most of the time I have the dishes done by the time I remember to think, oh, I did all that for the benefit of all sentient beings. Because I'm so on automatic pilot of interacting with my world in the same old way. So our training in our path of preparation is training ourselves to get off automatic pilot and find some way to inspire ourselves to think bodhicitta as we're doing anything. If we can do it one time a day, we are making huge progress, because our eons of history is to never think of it at all. So then to think of it 2 times a day, wow, right? Every single time we think of it, it's a huge, big wow, because of the impact it's having on our own mind. All right, so the wish in the form of the prayer is a wow. A wish in the form of action is a wow. Those grow into the direct experience. the real bodhicitta, which is like beyond wow. And that then colors our mind for forever after. And we live according to it. And that's our path of habituation to our total Buddhahood. That's why we want to cultivate our bodhicitta, so that our kindnesses become causes for the end of suffering for everybody, instead of just causes for a little bit of worldly pleasure for us both. Worldly pleasure is nice. I'm not saying avoid them. I'm saying use them. Okay? All right, so finally, we understand enough about, no, not finally. So those two factors about the wish of the highest possible achievement that I can make for the greatest number of beings' benefit, that's what's imprinted in the seed as we're giving flowers to Aunt Mary with bodhicitta in our heart. That makes the bodhicitta so powerful, because our wish is so big. Ordinarily, our wish is for my benefit, one being. Maybe Aunt Mary's benefit, two beings. But compare that to the benefit of 9 billion humans, and your seed is that much bigger. All sentient beings, right? Beyond measure. See how powerful bodhicitta can be when we really get it? We see how it could, in fact, be the cause for that state of mind omniscience, the state of heart of loving everybody so much that you will be what they need to reach their ultimate happiness. That's bodhicitta. So now finally, they give us 5 metaphors for bodhicitta that helps us understand its benefit, right? I have 3 minutes to give you the 5 metaphors for the benefits of bodhicitta, which is what this class was all about. First metaphor, bodhicitta is like an alchemical elixir that changes this inferior body into the supreme body of a Buddha. An alchemical elixir, you mix some kind of compounds together, you say magic words over it, and then you dip iron into it, and when you pull it out, the iron is gold. Like really gold, not just covered with gold. That's alchemy, transformation. These physical bodies are transformed from suffering physical body to body made of light, body made of love, by way of our bodhicitta. Second, our bodhicitta is like a precious jewel, so difficult to find and able to clear away the poverty of all living kind. By teaching others to do it. Buddha did not end all hunger. Buddha teaches beings how to end their own hunger. And that's how poverty is obliterated. Third, bodhicitta is like an evergreen tree, which continues to bear fruit, versus a banana plant. One batch of bananas and the whole plant dies. Bodhicitta perpetuates itself. Fourth one, bodhicitta is like a great warrior who is able to protect us from fear and danger. Shakyamuni Buddha couldn't protect his own people from being attacked. Bodhicitta is our great protection. It doesn't stop the speeding bullet hitting our body, but it changes our perception of that as being dangerous. That's wild. Our bodhicitta doesn't care if somebody kills us or not. Long story. No, that's not what it means. It is our protection because it colors our behavior choice in response to the scary situation. And when we have a clear path of action, the fear is not needed. The fear does drop away. Fifth one, bodhicitta is like the fire at the end of an eon. It's able to burn away all our negative deeds without any difficulty. So growing our bodhicitta is this huge factor in destroying the misunderstanding through which we perpetuate our suffering. Once that's cleared out, we just set about to create the causes for happiness for everybody, for a world in which every being knows and acts according to kindness, the truth of kindness. All of it because we've made this determination to reach the highest elevation of our evolution, of our heart, for the benefit of, the biggest number of beings. Getting ourselves off of me and my suffering, me and my happiness. Turning it on to all beings who are a part of me. Their happiness and my happiness become one and the same thing. Takes training. Okay. Benefits of bodhicitta. I hope I've done my job and that we'll come back and find out next week why we can't just turn it on. All right. Thank you for the opportunity to share. I need to hear this over and over again. And I wouldn't do it otherwise. So thank you. Remember that person we wanted to be able to help? Do you see why we put them up in front of us at the beginning of class? So that what we've done has been growing our bodhicitta all along. And that's a great, great goodness. So please be happy with yourself. And think of that precious holy guide, your special one, who's there with you. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please, please stay close. Ask them to continue to inspire you and help you and guide you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there, that love, that compassion, that wisdom. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom may. So use those 3 long exhales, the first to share with that one person. The second with everyone you love. The third with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with bodhicitta. And may it be so. Ayale. Hi, Jemmy. Okay, have a nice weekend, everybody. I will see you Monday morning.
Thank you, teacher. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Nice to see you.
Bye.
Kong.